ठीक है। हाँ, करिए सर।
Good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Diksha Gupta from Economics Department, Government Girls PG College, Ujjain, a government of MP Center for Excellence in Higher Education, accredited by NEC in third cycle with A+, welcome our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. O.P. Shukla, Principal, NDA, National Defense Academy, Pune, our chairperson and principal, Dr. Hemant Gehlot, convener of this webinar, Dr. V.K. Gupta, IQSC coordinator and co-convener of this webinar, Dr. Neeta Tapan, all the professor, participants, and all my dear students. This national webinar is organized by IQSC Cell, which is sponsored by Higher Education Bhopal. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Neeta Tapan, IQSC coordinator, for formal welcome address. Ma'am.
Good afternoon to you all. It's an extreme pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Government Girls PG College of Jain, which is basking in the glory of recently earned A plus grade in the third cycle of NAC accreditation. The National Education Policy 2020 has embarked upon the third year of its launching in graduation in the state of Madhya Pradesh since 2021-22. The academic flexibility, multiple entry and exit points, new curricula, e-content, credit-based system, open electives, and vocational courses, projects, internships, Indian knowledge systems, blended learning mode, etc. have brought a sea change in the whole educational scenario. This webinar serves as a platform for us to come together and explore the performance, problems, and prospects of the NEP and the changing higher education scenario. As we begin this intellectual journey, we have a unique opportunity to learn from esteemed speakers today and tomorrow to engage in meaningful discussions and exchange of ideas. At the outset, I heartily welcome the chairperson of the
Why is not coming?
नीचे करिए। अलाउ अलाउ अलाउ।
मुझे मैडम से कुछ बोलना है क्या? मैडम वॉइस नहीं आ रही है.
Sorry for the inconvenience. Now, I request Dr. Rashmi Bhargav, Head of Chemistry Department, to introduce today's resource person. Ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Diksha. I feel very honored to introduce Dr. O.P. Shukla. Professor Dr. Om Prakash Shukla, Principal of the National Defense Academy, is an alumnus of Allahabad University, from where he earned both his bachelor's and master's degree in 1984 and 1986 respectively. Soon thereafter, he was awarded a Doctor of Philosophy in Economics from the G.B. Pent Institute of Social Sciences, Allahabad, under CSJM University. As an academician, he has more than 30 years of teaching, research, and administrative experience. As a research guide, he has successfully supervised 25 PhD and MPhil scholars. Besides, he has been the principal investigator in UGC-sponsored research projects, research consultant to ICSSR, New Delhi, member, Working Group in Planning Commission, GOI, New Delhi, and currently he is associated as expert member in academic committees of several universities in India. It was in the year 2011 that he has selected by the UPSC as the principal of the prestigious National Defense Academy, a post he had held since then. He has also been nominated by the Vice Chancellor JNU to serve as an expert member in committees at the IMA Dehradun, AFA Hyderabad, and the AFTC Bengaluru. In 2017, Professor Shukla was nominated by the MOD, Government of India, for visit to Tanzania Military Academy, South Africa, for drafting academic curriculum. The team was headed by Professor Shukla. In addition, Professor Shukla is an academic fellow of the Indian Economic Association, Indian Institute of Public Administration, and the Indian Society of Labor Economics. Now, I'm inviting, with due respect, Dr. O.P. Shukla. Please come over here and deliver his speech. Dr. O.P. Shukla.
Thank you very much. It's a great privilege and honor for me for being associated today in one of the very important aspect of the webinar, which is a national webinar being organized by the Government Girls PG College Ujjain, which is sponsored by the Higher Education Department, Government of Madhya Pradesh. So, in the very beginning, dear dignitaries, Dr. H.L. Anil Jawal, Additional Director, Higher Education Department, Ujjain, Dr. Hemant Gahlot, Principal, Government Girls PG College, Ujjain, convener of the seminar or the webinar, Dr. V.K. Gupta, HOD Physics, co-convener, Dr. Neeta Tapan, who is also coordinator of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell. I'm very happy in the very beginning when it was told that the college has been accredited by NAC in the third cycle with A+ grade. My heartiest compliments, congratulations to the principal and the faculty members and the staff and the students, to each and everyone, that the college is achieving its glory on continuous and on sustained basis. My heartiest compliments. Now coming to the very aspects of the today's webinar, which is the topic is National Education Policy 2020, Changing Higher Education Scenario. It is very pertinent topic which has been selected, and as we all know, that education in any society or a nation is a base for growth, for development, for survival, and in all aspects, in dignity, the education play a very, very important role. If we go back in our own nation's history, which is very rich in traditions, wherein, and if we read little bit literature of our Takshila University, Nalanda University, wherein the education which was there, the purpose of education, the aim of education, which is very explicit from the very aspects which have been found there or which were pursued at that time. Even Ban Bhatt's Kadambari, in which the description is found what is a good education. And at that time, it was visualized, the nomenclature, though it is different from the present one, but at that time, it was visualized as the knowledge of 64 kalas or arts, which presently come under the liberal art systems. Even in our ancient literature, which we technically call as Puran and Vedas, it has been called that Sa Vidya Ya Vimukte. Education has been described that those who have education are Vimukte, are free from what? Free from ills, free from backwardness, free from all aspects of the very underdeveloped stages. So therefore, the very education, the meaning of education, the purpose of education, the aim of education, which traditionally has been described in a very, very broader context. Subsequently, in colonial regime, we found that the education was just confined to the very aspects of rote learning, or in some sense, a mechanized way of doing the things, given the object, given the functions, and to produce certain output. So it was an input-output theory kind of the system which was there in the colonial period, which could not serve at all for the growth of the nation. In the post-independence era, the efforts were made to bring the education system in the directions in which a nation requires. What a nation requires, as it has been told by the Macaulay, that maths, science, engineering, all the technical things which was brought into practice, implemented also. Though the vision and the mission at that time was also very clear, what we want from the education system. It was described even by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore in 1906 that the education should be viewed from the holistic point of view. It's not just an information, it's a collective information, information converted into the knowledge, knowledge converted into the set of skills or the cognitive skills which are essentially required for the growth of a nation. Now, we do not dwell or do not want to describe too much about the post-independence till 2020, because we all know that the purpose of the education, the aim of the education could not be delivered at that time for the growth and development of the nation, which is very much explicit from the kind of disparities which prevailed or which existed or which grew at that time. Also, the poverty, the unemployment, and other socio-economic problems which persisted. And education, when we say that it is the backbone for the growth of the nation, then that means that somewhere there was a disconnect. What the education was there, well, what was the outcome, and as a result of the outcome, what were the various parameters that existed from 1950 to 2000, we can say in larger scale. In 2001, a new economic system emerged by which actually things changed, and we could see some of the very positive aspects of the development. Now, coming very specifically to the 2020 education policy, which clearly says that education, wherein a comprehensive, a multidimensional look or the achievement has to be done, and which can unlock all doors of progress. And it has been said that education advances in proportion, education advances the proportion to the development also, intelligence also, among the masses. So, the Education Policy 2020, National Education Policy 2020, the three aspects are very important to see. What is the vision of this NEP 2020 and how it is different from the previous education policies? When we go through the vision of National Education Policy 2020, we find that it describes that the education which envisages India-centric education, or the education system to be India-centric, that contributes directly to transforming our nation's sustainability into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all. Dear participants, I am just describing the vision of the National Education Policy 2020, how large the vision is, and it can be elaborated in different aspects. Why? Because the first very sentence itself describes that the NEP 2020 has to be India-centric. When we say India-centric, what do we mean by it? We simply mean that today we are living in 21st century, which is called as a knowledge century. And we are in the globalized world system. That means we are part of the global system. Then how it can be India-centric? India-centric means that whatever the Indian social, cultural, economic, and other aspects are, we need to understand them first of all, and we need to promote them from the development point of view. Here, development itself has a very broad meaning. Development simply does not mean that the increase in income, getting employment, increase in consumption. Development means, which has been subsequently described in the National Education Policy 2020, that the development means the holistic development of the personality. And that is why it has been said that what a nation requires, a nation which is abundant, having abundance of the natural resources, having abundance of the human resources, having abundance of its glorious past, history, culture. So we have to learn from our history, we have to learn from our culture, we have to learn and we have to understand that given the natural resources, given the human resources, how we can go ahead. And then we have to transform into an equitable and vibrant society or the vibrant economy through high quality education and education to all also. When we say equitable and vibrant, we simply mean accessibility to all, that the education should be accessible to all. Everybody should have chance to have an education. And that we find in NEP 2020 that there are clear-cut provisions which has been made in our policy measures. So therefore, with the given vision of the NEP 2020, certain objectives were derived. Objective means that what we have to do, or what we want to do as part of the given vision of the education. And in the objective, we find that when the vision is given this, which I have just described to all of you, then the objective is to revamp the entire schooling system, secondary education system, and the higher education system. Because long back by our predecessors, even Radhakrishnan had also said that the secondary education is a connect between the primary and the higher education. So therefore, through NEP 2020, efforts have been made, or clear objectives have been laid down, that we have to revamp the entire education system, in which the model which earlier was there, 10+2, now it has come in terms of 5+3+3+4. Since I have to confine myself towards the higher education system, so therefore I will not dwell too much upon the very primary aspects and the secondary level aspects, what things are there, how things are being changed there in their system. But in a very summative way, I would like to say that first of all, efforts have been made to make an integrated approach from primary, which has been described in the NEP 2020 as the foundation of the education. And then it is the secondary and the higher education. In the higher education, the objective is very clear of the NEP 2020. It says that first of all, create world-class multidisciplinary higher education institutions across the country. Because what the sorry, oh, chalo, इधर चला गया, देखो, turn off, ये देखो क्या हो गया. Sorry, very sorry, because actually I am through mobile, so call came and I wanted to disconnect, but something went wrong. So in the higher education system, to make the system in a multidisciplinary way, because the previous was compartmentalized, in the sense, because those who are doing BA were part of the BA. Those who are doing BSc were part of the BSc. Those who are doing engineering were part of the engineering. Those who are doing MBA were part of this line. So all subsets of the education before 2020 were compartmentalized, which was not as a part of holistic development of the personality. Because when we say that today we are living in a knowledge society, and knowledge is so interactive or so intrinsic that requires an integrated approach and multidisciplinary approach. So therefore, consequent to the implementation of NEP 2020, the multidisciplinary approach has been introduced, which will have a very long-term benefits to our society. And I'm very happy to see through different literatures, newspapers, and the kind of changes in the very short span of 3 years, which have emerged through higher educational institutions, the kind of academic curriculum which has come, it has adopted itself. Though the NEP 2020 is envisaging that the implementation phases by 2025, by 2030, by 2035. It envisages that by 2030, 100% enrollment in the primary and the secondary should be there. And it also envisages that in the higher education, the gross enrollment ratio should be 50% by 2030 and 82% to 100% by 2035. These are so that accessibility, wherein participation by all sections of the society, irrespective of caste, class, religion, or whatever it may be there, everybody should have an equal opportunity for the education. And in that direction, large scale efforts are being made. However, at the same time, to increase the competitiveness in the higher educational environment, the world-class universities, for the first time through NEP 2020, efforts are being made to bring the world-class universities into our system, which itself have proved over the period of time in terms of their outcome to the nation, for their progress, for their development. And the next aspect is giving more and more emphasis on the research in the higher educational institutions. So the objective of the NEP 2020 in the higher education domain are very specific. First, to make it multidisciplinary. Second, to make it research oriented. And third, to make it in a very competitive environment. Now, these are the three important aspects. For that, what has been done under the implementation plan, various committees, subcommittees have been made, and it has been found that the need is to bring quality in the system. And while bringing quality in the system, for achieving the objective of competitiveness, of research, and the very accessibility for all. In quality, it talks first of all about the infrastructures. And second aspect is towards introducing the multiple entry exit and also the credit bank scheme, which itself in the very webinar theme, all aspects which have been narrated, the sub themes of the webinar are the aspects of the very important topic of the today's webinar which has been selected. And all these sub themes are very, very relevant from nation's point of view. And more importantly, the sub theme number 7, which is there, which is Indian knowledge system, that is a very important. And next to that is the value-based education. In today's education system, we find that these two play a very important role. Education simply does not mean acquiring knowledge, getting or collecting information. Education, a value-based education. How we develop ourselves so that consequent to my development or our development, nation progresses, society progresses, our character, our value system, at the same time need to be upgraded. So the due emphasis has been given while achieving a multidisciplinary approach in the education, so that a doctor or an engineer or a manager professional does not have the domain of the very professional aspect, but he has the domain of the other societal aspects also. Yoga, one of the important things. Today we are finding that the premier institutions of our country, like Indian Institute of Managements and Indian Institute of Technologies, ITs and the IMs, top ranked universities, are practicing or have already adopted such academic curriculum, which is playing a very, very important role in shaping the multidisciplinary approaches. BA curriculum has been amended in such a way that it is giving an exposure to the core subjects also, allied subjects also, and plus what the society needs or what an individual needs, that subjects also. A very judicious mix of the very important aspects of the curriculum, amended curriculum, blended curriculum, is under implementation. And that is a role model for the other universities, other educational institutions to follow. So the NEP 2020, given the domain of the very vision and the objectives, then as part of implementation, first implementation part came for enhancing the quality. In this context, I would also like to say here before the participants that there are two very important notable observations from our Honorable Supreme Court. It has said that today's education system require reforms for a good human behavior. And also it says that in the past, with the increase in the literacy rate, when we were saying that our literacy rate is 60%, 65%, 70% like this, at that time the judgments are of 1990s. It says that there is a decline in human values in the society. Hence, from judicial point of view, if we go through, we find that it also urges upon the educational institutions, upon the government mechanism for a kind of transformation in the education system. So in one sense, we can say that the NEP 2020 is a transformation, is a break from the past, and new things have been introduced in our higher educational institutions. So therefore, what we are finding that the previous system, which was fragmented in its approach, like BA, BSc, BCom, MBA, engineering, so that fragmentation aspects have been closed. Also, there were less importance of the very cognitive skills. Now more and more cognitive skills efforts have been made from the very foundation level itself, from foundation level to the secondary and to the higher level. When by the time a student reaches to the higher level, he has certain cognitive skills, which skills are required in the society. That means directly or indirectly, the employment generation is also taking place. So the rigidity which was earlier existing, now from that rigidity, we have come into the stage of more and more liberal education. That is why sometimes the nomenclature of the degree by some of the universities has been given as a BA in liberal studies, wherein a student is studying the different stream subjects, science subject also, sports subjects also, art subjects also, culture subjects also. So the academic syllabus which has been made in such a way that a very holistic growth of the personality with value-based education, with character building aspects are taking place. And at the same time, the efforts from the government side through NEP 2020 is that the accessibility of this kind of the education should not only be confined to the top level institutions or to the very region specific institutions, rather from all aspects of the society across nation. And the most important thing which NEP 2020 talks, that the affiliation system of colleges to the university, over the time it has to be phased out, so that the colleges can also get more and more autonomy in framing academic syllabus, autonomy in framing the examination system, evaluation system, awarding degrees system. So all these aspects have been delivered at length and deliberately and have been deliberated by our policymakers, that how phasing out of the affiliation system and giving autonomy to the colleges has to take place. So therefore, what we can expect from our new system which will come or which is under implementation, and when it will be in full phased, starting from primary level of foundation level of education to the higher level by 2030 or by 2035. First benefit which our society will get is that we will be towards the very develop in the mainstream of development. Education system, as has been described by Gurunath Rabindranath Tagore, Swami Vivekananda, the holistic development they had described. We will definitely achieve a holistic development of an individual. The education will also strengthen the under NEP 2020. It will also strengthen certain value-based, our values, our character, our morals. All these things are the requirement from each and every product of an institution which is coming out and going into the mainstream of the society, whether for employment or whether for any socio-economic activity. But if these three things are embedded in his mind, in his cognitive skills, we are confident that not only he or she herself or himself, rather a society where he or she is living, the nation will be benefited with his value-based education, with his moral-based education, with his ethics, which is the prime need of the time. That how values are being imparted through educational modes, which NEP 2020 is giving due emphasis for this. So therefore, what we find in our system today, that the UG program, which earlier was 3 years program, now given the 3-year option also, the 4-year, and with credit bank and the multiple exit and entry level, wherein the first year after one is exiting, he will get certificate, second year he will get diploma, third year he will get the degree or the advanced diploma, and the fourth year the full degree will be there. But however, after 3 years the graduation degree will be there. So these entry and exit, of course, benefits to the individual also, to the family also, and the nation also. Because if he or she has come through such a system wherein he is in position or he wants some employment, some practical knowledge, he can go, he can exit, and his whatever he has achieved, his credit bank is there, and after some time one can pursue. So these two new aspects, multiple entry and exit, and the credit bank structure which has been introduced, will obviously give good results. So these are the very good aspects of the NEP 2020. And also in the higher education setup, when almost 30 to 40% population will be a part of the higher education setup by 2035, as it has been envisaged in NEP 2020. So that means our social fabric of the society will be very different. And we will find that the society is marching ahead towards growth and development. And as our Honorable Prime Minister is saying that today, when we are 5th in the world from economic point of view, he is envisaging that by 2025, we will be the 3rd largest economy in the world. So that means with this growth and development, or with this change, lot of responsibilities are also coming. So when the gross enrollment ratio will increase in the higher education, whether that higher education is in the management, in the science, or in the technology, or in the very literature, wherever, if the people have gone through with that value-based education, society, of course, will be in a position to contribute. And not only contribute, rather society or the people who have gone through with this will be in a position to maintain and to sustain the achievements of our economic progress, growth, and development. So if we have to move from fifth position, which today we have in terms of the economic power, we can say, and to the third stage, third largest economy, third, we need such type of education, particularly higher education, which is research oriented, multidisciplinary. And for that purpose also, the role of higher education at this juncture is, which is very critical to understand, is the development of infrastructure. Why? Because as we all know that our country is very, very large, very big country in terms of the very geographical area as are in the population context. The level of development, there are disparities also. Disparities, both regional disparities, rural and urban, disparities among classes also. We have to mitigate these disparities. And for mitigating this, through NEP 2020, efforts are on. So what is the crux of the need under NEP 2020? When we say world-class infrastructure, upgraded infrastructures, and back to 3 years, we have seen the kind of disasters which was there, the pandemic, COVID-19, we have seen that how disastrous consequences were there. And education also suffered a lot. Many of the educational institutions were closed. Why? Because infrastructures were not very sound. So therefore, learning from our past and to live in the present and think for the future, the need is to enhance, to augment, and to develop our infrastructure in the educational institutions. It is very easy to say than to do. When we talk about the infrastructures, we better understand that what infrastructures are required in a college mechanism. College requires well-equipped library, well-equipped labs, and digital system in the classrooms, even for the conduct of virtual classrooms also. So, and that given the size or the expansion of this infrastructure, the requirement of the budget is a very important. For that also, NEP 2020 talks that presently when we are around 3 to 3.5% of GDP in the educational sector, over the time it has to increase from 3.5 to 5%. So government has catered under NEP 2020 to give substantial amount of money for generating infrastructure in the colleges, in the universities, in the higher educational institutions. Because without infrastructure, we can think, we can discuss, but while implementing, while acting and desiring efficient outcome seems difficult. But we are confident that given the size of the budget and the growth of the economy, and at that time when we will be in the third largest economy of the world, and 5% if the GDP is earmarked for it, we'll be in a position to better reshape our infrastructure in the colleges. So I do not want to go much more because time is very important. I want to interact with the faculties also. So in conclusion, we can say that NEP 2020 in its vision, mission, objective, and aims is very clear that what is the requirement, what we have to do, and what we will get. The important part is its implementation. And the implementation is in the hand of the three important stakeholders. One important stakeholder is the student, other is the regulatory, that means the government and the bodies of the government, and third and the most important is the teaching fraternity. Teachers have a very, very important role, and for that also lot of provisions have been made in the NEP 2020, that how the professional development of a teacher has to be there. Different aspects have been described in greater detail, that the professional development of the faculty, role of student is also very important, how a student needs to be very sincere, hardworking, punctual, and honest toward their parents, toward the institutions, towards their teachers, has to be there. So, in brief, what I can say is that we are very optimistic, positive, and we are confident also that with the implementation of NEP 2020, different states, state level, district level efforts are on, and given the vision, mission, and the objectives of NEP 2020 by the Government of India is very clear. Various webinars, research projects, conferences are being organized to take a feedback that how it is going through. So the feedback mechanism of the government is also very effective, as and when there is a requirement of any intervention, that is also taking place. So the net result, which will start coming very soon for this growth and development of the nation, we are confident that we will be in a better position than what we are today, than what we were yesterday. So we now I stop myself here actually because time is going ahead. So with these words, I once again thank to the organizer of this national webinar. Thanks to the college authorities and dear students and other participants for listening me. And now I am open for question if there are any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your informative presentation. We are open for question answer session. If anyone has any query, they can write their question in the comment section. So there is a question. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Okay. NEP is not widely politicized among NEP is not widely publicized among higher secondary school students. Even today, they do not know fully about it. The question is raised by Dr. Mangleshwar Thakre.
Can I request you to please repeat again?
Yes, sir. NEP is not widely publicized among higher secondary school students. Even today, they do not know fully about it.
Yes.
Sir, unmute.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Oh, okay. Higher secondary level you are talking about, that why actually the wider it is, why not it is widely publicized? I think what do we mean by the publicity here, when the document part is very clear, and that document has been circulated widely to all the regulatory mechanism, first of all, whether it is for the very primary level or secondary, higher secondary, or the higher education level actually. So the document and the very aspects of the very higher secondary level, what things have to be done, that part is very clear actually. Now, implementation is a very bigger challenge than what the challenge is in the higher education system. And also, given the fact what the doctor is saying, that as we understand that the higher secondary structure is a very wide and very asymmetric also. Asymmetric, I simply mean that there are private schools, there are public schools, there are Navodaya Vidyalaya, there are CBSE, ICSE. So the different setup of the boards which are there. Now every board, some of the boards are directly coming under the Ministry of HRD. Some are coming under the state level boards under the various state governments. So the regulatory mechanism obviously has not given a uniform approach towards the document which has been published, NEP 2020. It may take some time, but we are confident over the time. It will take some time because it's a change from the past. It is a break from the past. NEP is giving a new look to the entire education system in our country. So over the night, it can't happen. So therefore, given focusing towards the publicity aspect, if it is not there in some of the pockets, in some of the states, in some of the regions, but I am confident that over the period of time, it will widely come into the circulation, and not only for circulation, rather for the implementation also. I hope I am satisfied. I have given the reply.
Thank you for the valuable suggestion. Sir, there is one more question. That is, NEP is India centric, but in the NEP implementation in MP, there is a small portion of Indian content, and it should be increased, or a separate paper must be on Indian knowledge system.
Yes, when we say that India centric, I simply mean to say that what has been the past Indian knowledge system, how relevant it is there in the present context, and how to take out from the past and give and fit it as per the present requirement. So a lot of research, that is why actually under NEP 2020 and in the higher educational institutions, even at the undergraduate level, research part has been given due importance. Research part means that those who will be doing BA 4 years curriculum, the fourth year will be entirely a research oriented things. So research need to be done. Research, that means the analytical skills, critical thinking. These are the two important aspects. Our cognitive feeling is there, but how critical it is there, how analytical it is there. So with this research, so research does not mean for the sake of doing research. Research means something based on the given knowledge, what you can cull out, that this is very relevant, this is very important, this need to be done. So it doesn't mean that India centric, but the knowledge cannot be any outsider. Knowledge has to be from inside actually. For that due care will be taken, I am confident.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable suggestions. Now, I would like to invite our principal and chairperson of this webinar, Dr. Hemant Galot, for the presidential address. Sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. So first and foremost, my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Shukla for his lucid, interesting, and very useful discourse on NEP 2020, which is actually harping the doors of our Indian educational system throughout the nation. It was definitely not just very informative, but pretty explanatory as well, considering the length and breadth of the provisions made in national education policy by the government of India. As you know, this webinar is a two-day webinar, and once again we will be benefited by one more discourse tomorrow. But all the information that we obtained today and the subtle nuances about which Dr. Shukla talked has actually richly benefited us as audience, as faculty, and as the people running with the provisions of NEP. So many things have been cleared. I think the characteristic features we have always been talking about: multiple exit, multiple entry systems, choice-based syllabus system, and honor system. And I mean, a lot has also been introduced for the Indian scholars uh, in this new education policy. And all these provisions are definitely going to benefit them. And if they are benefited, the society will be benefited. And if the society is benefited naturally, ultimately it contributes to the overall growth and development of the nation. Uh, one thing which Dr. Shukla also emphasized that this NEP is the India-centric education system, and although it was his privilege, and he also made it quite clear to the query asked to him. Uh, but I would like to add a bit on what is actually India-centric. India-centric doesn't mean only that all that we study is Indian, but all that we study is pertinent to the Indian circumstances and the growth and development of the nation called India. Now, if it contains knowledge from foreign agencies, it contains knowledge from different research scholars and thinkers from abroad, they are welcome, so long as they are contributing to the national growth and development in all the fields, including economic development, political development, social developments, and etc. etc. So India centric means whatever we study, whatever we do in the field of education, the focus of it, the signature of it is the country India, and it should be revolving around the needs, whether they are political needs or social needs or industrial needs or technological needs. It should be satisfying the needs of the nation, and that is what the NEP stands for. In the present scenario. So that was a wonderful discourse. We were all richly benefited. On behalf of the institution and the family of Government Girls PG College of Jain, I wholeheartedly thank Dr. Shukla for his valuable discourse and very interesting presentation. I also thank the entire team looking after the organization of this webinar, Dr. V.K. Gupta, Dr. Meeta Tapan, and the comparer, we got an asset, and Dr. Diksha Gupta, Dr. Rashmi Bhargav, and of course the background technological experts, Mr. Vivek Dubey. Thank you very much, and I hope now the technical session is going to begin, so please continue with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now it's time for paper presentation. Our first participant is Dr. Divya Verma, Assistant Professor in the Chemistry Department, Government Girls PG College, Ujjain, and her topic is Major Challenges to Higher Education Institutes in Implementing NEP 2020. Ma'am. Divya, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you are audible, ma'am. You can start. Is it visible, the presentation?
No, ma'am. The presentation is not visible. Ma'am, now your presentation is visible.
Okay. A very good afternoon to all of you. This is Dr. Divya Verma, Assistant Professor of Chemistry, Government Girls PG College, Ujjain. The topic of my presentation is Major Challenges to Higher Education Institutes in Implementing NEP 2020. The key points which we'll discuss in the presentations are introduction, highlights of NEP, challenges to higher education institutes in implementing NEP 2020, and the summary. The national education policy is aimed at transforming India's education system into a modern, progressive, and equitable one. A well defined and futuristic education policy is a must for every country because education is the key driver of economic and social progress. The NEP policy attentions on refining poor literacy and proficiency result related to primary schools, falling dropout levels in middle and secondary schools, and presenting a multidisciplinary tactic to the higher education organizations. The new education policy has replaced the old one of in 1986. In January 2015, a committee headed by former Cabinet Secretary TSR Subramaniam began a process to discuss a new education policy. And based on the report of the committee, the draft of the NEP was presented in 2019 by the panel headed by Krishnaswamy Kasturirangan, a former chief executive of the ISRO. And finally, the NEP 2020 was released on July 29, 2020 after being approved by the Union Cabinet. The ultimate goal is to make education available for everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances. The success of NEP and the pace of its implementation depends to a large extent on how successfully the government, universities, and schools can tide over the practical challenges facing it. The newly launched policy has a vision for an India focused education program that directly contributes to transforming our nation into a society of equal and living knowledgeable by providing equality education for all. But there is a world of difference between the writing a policy on paper and actually following it. In this presentation, we will discuss the major challenges in the implementation of NEP in higher education institutes. The sum of the highlights of NEP are flexibility. Multiple entry and exit from any course are a flexible move that will enable a student to receive a basic certificate if they finish a year. 2. Diploma certificate if they complete 2 years, and a degree once the course is completed, resulting in no loss of years. They will get honors degree once they complete the course on 4th year. A multidisciplinary approach. The term multidisciplinary is a method of learning that incorporates a variety of disciplines and topics of study to create a well-rounded education.
whether it is science, arts, or commerce, student will be obsolete. Students will have more options in terms of what they can study and will be able to choose course of studies. And the cultivation life skills. It also encourages to build a life skill like creativity and critical thinking to encourage logical decision making and innovations. Life skills such as communication, cooperation, and teamwork, and also experiential learning is also included in the new education policy. The equal promotion, greater subject choice flexibility, as well as the removal of the boundaries between arts and science, curricular, co-curricular, and extra curricular activities, sports, and vocational crafts would allow students to study and grow at their own speed. A regular formative assessment. The assessment for learning, sometimes referred to as formative assessment, has been defined as all those activities undertaken by teachers which provide information to be used as feedback to modify the teaching and learning activities in which they are engaged. Assessment will transition to a formative style that promotes higher education order, thinking skills, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity. Challenges to higher education institute in implementing NEP. This slide represents the major challenges of implementation of NEP in higher education institute. The first one is learning or certificate degree course. Although flexibility in the higher education model through the concept of multiple exit is an important step to reduce the number of dropouts, yet a question arises on the value of such certificates and diplomas. The India psyche deeply associate jobs with degree obtained. So, in order to implement the new education system, we must first eliminate the old thinking that only with a degree can one successfully secure a job. The second challenge towards this is towards multidisciplinary education. The current education system does not include formal training and orientation towards pedagogy for college and university teachers. This calls for an immediate change in curriculum design to make it flexible and to enable foundational and high level thinking and skill development at various level of education. As the previous keynote speaker OP Shukla sir already told, the funding is also a major issue. Fully implementing the proposal of NEP 2020 for higher education will be an achievement given the limited resources at hand. This requires private institutions to provide more scholarship to make admission possible for students from low income group as well, but the NEP fails to discuss how this can be achieved. This indicates the need for more public funding in higher education, which really does not fit the current scenario. Although the gross enrollment ratio was increased, but this will also not sufficient. Next is digital connectivity. We require internet penetration in remote areas because e-learning is the way forward. As witnessed during the pandemic, digital infrastructure for this purpose will include digital classrooms, expertise-driven online teaching models, and AR/VR technologies to overcome gaps in physical teaching and lab infrastructure. Uniform assessment schemes across school, career counseling sessions, and teacher training to become adopt at new age technologies. With this, I conclude my lectures by and also the summary of my topic. I will explain as the drafting committee of NEP 2020 has made a comprehensive effort to formulate a policy that consider drivers' perspectives, global best practice in education, field experience, and stakeholder feedback. The mission is ambitious, but the implementation roadmap will decide whether it is truly led to an all-inclusive education that makes learner, industry, and future ready. The NEP 2020 is in many ways just what India's need as it develop into the world's largest workforce in the coming years. To make the vision contained in it a reality, we must overcome significant implementation challenges in a sustained manner over the years and decades to come. To sum up, the NEP is a truly groundbreaking document and it offers solution to a wide range of pedagogical and structural issues and aims to make each and every Indian student truly future ready. With this, I conclude my talk and thank you for the organizing team to give me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Is anyone has any query about it or any questions?
May I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
You have talked about the challenges in implementing NEP. So, what are your suggestions to meet these challenges?
Yes, sir. We can improve study by study. We can step ahead, and in future we will also implementing. We take is as a challenge, and we will implementing some issues like funds and the internet connectivity and all the challenges we overcome with time. So it takes some time but we will overcome it. So this is my suggestion as the जो एनईपी जिसके एचआरडी के द्वारा जो बनाया गया है और इतने बड़े बड़े साइंटिस्ट उसमें इन्वॉल्व हुए हैं तो उन्होंने उनकी जो थिंकिंग है वो बहुत ही डीप थिंकिंग है उसके द्वारा ही इसको लाया गया है तो यह सभी के लिए अच्छा ही है और हम इसमें चैलेंजेस को एक्सेप्ट करके और इन फ्यूचर हम इम्प्लीमेंट इसको करेंगे थैंक यू
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope sir is satisfied from your answer. आपने जो एनईपी 2020 के बारे में जितना इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइड करी प्रेजेंट किया आई होप एवरीवन गॉट इट और किसी की क्वेरी हो और किसी का क्वेश्चन हो एनी ऑफ द प्रोफेसर तो वो पूछ सकते हैं दे कैन आस्क एनी स्टूडेंट्स write or comment the question in the comment section. Okay, then we'll proceed further. We'll continue with our second and last participant, Dr. Vikrant Shah. He's the guest faculty member of our drawing department, Government Girls PG College, Ujjain. And his topic is National Education Policy 2020 and Challenging Higher Education Scenario. This is the theme of our webinar also. So I hope Sir has joined.
मैडम मैंने ज्वाइन कर लिया है हेलो
Okay. Yes, sir. You are audible.
जी मैडम मेरे मोबाइल में यानी मेरी इसमें कुछ डिवाइस में प्रॉब्लम है तो डॉक्टर दीक्षा गुप्ता मैडम दिव्या मैडम के उस पे ही मैं ज्वाइन कर रहा हूँ मैडम
Okay, sir. We'll continue. We'll change the name from here. So you can share your PPT. Your PPT is not visible.
Is it visible?
It is visible, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You can continue.
Very good afternoon to one and all. I, Dr. Vikrant Shah, presenting my PPT presentation on the topic NEP and the changing higher education scenario. In 20th century of the 21st, in the 20th year of 21st century, a new education policy has come in India. The first new education policy was made in 1968. Important changes have been made again regarding the new education policy, in which many rules related to education have been changed. Recently, the Ministry of Human Resource Management has changed the name of its ministry along with changes in the education policy. The Ministry of Human Resource Management will now be known as the Ministry of Education. Professional development has been made necessary for teachers under the National Education Policy, and service training will also be organized for teachers, in which training will be given to teachers. On the one hand, it has envisioned an important project of linking the traditional values, culture, and indigenous intellect of Indian society with global modernity through knowledge and education. While on the other hand, mother tongue, local skill, and public conscience should be integrated in the Indian education system. India is a nation decorated with colors of diversity, where the dialect changes in every few years, the weather and the food too. In spite of all this diverse lifestyle and dialect, this nation was always bound by the thread of unique unity. There was a time when India's overall education system was ringing in the whole world. There was Takshila in the north, Nalanda and Vikramshila moving towards the east, Vallabhi in Saurashtra, and Kanthalu Rasal in the south India. Not degree holders, but knowledgeable, prudent, courageous, contented, enterprising, and self-related, reliant youth were prepared. Intensive research was done on various subjects. People from far wide used to come to these world famous institutions of India for learning. The cycle of time changed, and gradually this system changed with the invasions and arrival of outside robbers. During the British Raj, the Macaulay education system took away their self-respect from the Indians. English became the main medium of Indian institutions. In 2020, new educational policy 2020, one of the major development takes shape, and recently released new Indian education policy has sounded the trump of efforts to make India a world guru, once again by making major changes in the current education system. The policy is multifaceted and holistic, very flexible, based on knowledge enhancement and skill development. Importantly, this policy is combining Indian and human values with high technology, through which we will be able to produce successful, happy, and futuristic but young people connected to our glorious past. This will definitely be a big step towards self-reliant India. No corner of Indian education seems to be left untouched. In this new education policy, it emphasizes on the promotion of Indian languages, arts and culture, and also on activities necessary for the physical and mental development of children. Before, most of the time, online learning courses provided content in English and Hindi only. After the new education policy NEP 2020, e-content will also be produced in 8 regional languages: Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Gujarati, Marathi, Bengali, and Oriya. Referring to transgender, apart from women, this policy seemed to try to connect every Indian. The mention of transgender for the first time in the new education policy and the mention of special undertaking to connect them with the stream of education is certainly commendable. The level of education is foundation through which the intellectual development of the student is done. Accepting the needs, this teaching is divided into 3 levels: memory level, understanding level, and reflective level. Keeping in view the need of modern education, it is necessary that the quality of education should be increased as much as possible, by which quality and intellect citizens are created, and so that they can contribute their cooperation in the development of nation in their future life. The policy seeks to reconnect children and adults who had dropped out or dropped out into the mainstream of education. Special provisions for the differently abled, including the establishment of special resource centers for the disabled, the provision of special teachers, the availability of specialized resource for them, the inclusion of assistive devices and literature, and the most importantly, providing them the main access to education. The new education policy not only seems to be moving forward with this objective, it also puts in front of us various provisions to advance all classes, aiming to establish quality and harmony in the society. Although there may be challenges in implementing this policy, but for this, a holistic ecosystem can be created from teachers and students to educational institutions, along with the Indian Ministry of Education on the basis of SWOT analysis, SWOT evaluation for the different level of education system. Thank you and Jai Hind. मैडम आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है. When you are not audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Is anyone having any question? Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Divya ma'am. Thank you, Vikrant sir, for the presentation. Now, I would request Dr. V.K. Gupta sir, convener of this webinar, for vote of thanks. Sir.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. NEP 2020 is a major breakthrough in the education scenario of the country. And today, in this webinar, the main speaker, Dr. O.P. Shukla, has exhaustively talked about it and answered the queries raised by the participants. So, I must thank first of all Dr. O.P. Shukla. And then I thank Dr. H.L. Anijwal Sahab, who is patron and AD of Higher Education Ujjain Division, I must thank the principal and chairperson of this webinar, Principal Dr. Hemant Gehlot, sir. And then I thank the participants, the presenters, Dr. Divya Verma, Dr. Vikrant Shah, and other participants and organizers for this very good webinar on the first day of it. So, once again, I thank all of you on behalf of the organizers, on behalf of Government Girls PG College Ujjain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are sharing feedback link in the comment section. It is compulsory to fill the feedback. We are sharing the feedback link in WhatsApp group as well as on the YouTube channel comment section. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
It's okay? Done? Can I leave now?